It is necessary for each of us to expand our tolerance for suffering. Nothing great is achieved without suffering. And suffering is actually a relative term. To a person who has suffered much, minor sufferings matter little. To a person who suffered a little, little sufferings are great. But a person achieves more the more tolerance they have to expand their capacity to suffer. A simple diet is an act of suffering. It is a daily, multiple times a day, a choice to limit your physical desire for food or for drink. If you wish to achieve a certain level of physical health, you must suffer to get to it. Suffering is necessary for athletic skill. No one is able to just simply go run a marathon. You have to build your body's tolerance to the suffering so that over time you can achieve greater and greater distance. Suffering and strength go hand in hand. As one's strength expands, one's tolerance to suffering expands. Who among us could get hit by an NFL player? Not many. Actually, it's one of my dreams for my dad. Dad literally dreams to get hit by an NFL player just once. That's all it would take. NFL players, both by strength and by tolerance, have allowed themselves to build themselves up to take incredible impact and to be able to withstand the hit. Women have an innate capacity to suffer that does not belong to men. A woman's entire system speaks to motherhood, and from the first moment that system has awakened, there is an interior carrying that a woman has that a man simply doesn't have. I am personally convinced this is the reason why men have to prove to suffer. Women are like, what are you doing? Men are like, we've got to show it. Women know by their body the movements of their own rhythms. They know that if they are called to motherhood, it is going to be through an act of suffering that they give birth to life. Suffering for women is inside their body. Suffering for men is outside their body. That's why they're whiners when they get hurt. But men have to stand up to a plate to be able to prove that they can take on the world. My dad is very proud that he is a Marine, because in Marine he went through an experience of suffering that has increased his tolerance for the challenges of the world. Suffering is an aspect of our Christian identity without which we cannot achieve holiness. Today's first reading is about the suffering servant, that through Christ's sufferings he would redeem many. And so Jesus Christ, dying on the cross, showed us that suffering is an element of self-gift. You cannot serve unless you're willing to suffer for another. The corollary virtue to suffering is sacrifice. Sacrifice is the intentional act where I lay myself down for the good of another. Sacrifice by its nature is other-centered, at some cost to myself. There can be no sacrifice unless I suffer in the gift. Sacrifice by its nature is a stretching beyond my limits. It's the ability to take from what I have and give to those who have not, even to the point of sometimes depleting what I have so that others can have more. The act of sacrifice, the act of suffering, is what the book of Hebrews spoke about in today's second reading. That Jesus himself, the Son of God, gave himself as a gift to humanity without sin, so that in that gift we can understand that the fundamental attitude of a Christian needs to be self-gift in a sacrificial act that's accompanied through suffering. The apostles didn't get it. They are like many people who think that pleasure is the ultimate reward. The apostles come up to Jesus today and said, Lord, we want you to do whatever we ask of you, which first of all is a very arrogant way to approach somebody. Beyond the arrogance, Jesus says, what do you want me to do for you? They said, we want you to give us all the highest honors. We want you to give us the highest honors. Jesus says to them, well, can you do what it takes to get the highest honors? They said, we can. Now, Jesus himself turns it around on them. In order for you to do this, can you drink the cup that I'm about ready to drink? They were too ignorant to recognize what Jesus was saying, because he has himself been telling them, the Son of Man has come to suffer and to give his life for many as a ransom. The cup that Jesus was going to drink, the cup that was found in the book of Hebrews, was the cup of sacrifice and suffering, of utter self-gift, by which he was poured out. Like a skin full of wine that got burst open, Jesus poured himself out. And he turns around and he says, can you do that? And they said, we can. Stupid. But he prophesied, you will. The cup that I am to drink, you will drink. The baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. Because both of those apostles offered themselves in a bloody martyrdom. They learned their maturity, they expanded their tolerance for suffering, they learned the art of sacrifice, and they learned to let go of the specialness of honors and to realize that the joy of life is in the outpouring of self, even to the point of their own blood. And so they died a bloody martyrdom out of love for the proclamation of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Each of us have to expand our tolerance to suffering. And the ultimate suffering, the ultimate goal of that, is the last line of today's gospel. The Son of Man has come to serve and not to be served. I hear a lot of language nowadays about people expecting everybody else to do something for me. And this idea that if you're really a Christian, you'll give me whatever I want. But that's not a true Christian attitude, because the attitude of a Christian is we all serve one another. I serving you and you serving me in a mutual act of gift. Each of us able to serve in different ways. Some with greater capacity, some with lesser capacity, but that's part of our human nature. What is not part of our human nature is that there's some who take and all who give. We all give. But none of us can survive on our own. We are all limited in our capacity to provide for ourselves. It is the very nature of our humanity to rely on one another for the goods of life and love and ultimate holiness. We have to have humility to receive an act of service, and we have to have the audacity to give an act of service. Receiving is a great gift of love that we know that others support me where I cannot support myself. Giving is an act of sacrifice where I recognize the needs of others and supply for their needs to the degree I am capable. We cannot be weak in serving one another. That is a failing football team. That is an army that cannot shoot straight. That is an unhealthy body. We must expand our tolerance for suffering in an act of sacrifice so that we can serve one another in love. That means that we have to expand our desire to give, expand our capacity in giving. And eventually, the person who could only run 2 miles could run 26. And the person who could only lift 100 pounds could lift 400. Because by gently expanding our tolerance to suffering, we expand the ability for us to serve one another in love. And this is the core attitude of a steward. Stewardship is the generous act of gift of self given to others out of a shared need so that we can supply for one another's needs, ultimately for the holiness of life and the salvation of our souls, but also for the incredible practical goods that we have at this parish. For those of you who were here before Mass started, you saw the list of what was going on in this parish. This parish is highly active because we have stewards who have given themselves in dozens of ways, hundreds of ways. But that is because they've expanded their capacity to sacrifice for others and share this great gift that we have as a parish. We cannot meet our needs if not every year we also expand our ability to sacrifice and give. We have to stretch our time that we put into the chapel, the time that we put into prayer, and certainly the time that we never miss Sunday Mass. And we have to encourage others to never miss Sunday Mass. There is nothing as important as this moment. And if we know anyone who's a Catholic who's staying at home, you should call them and say, you should go to Mass. Come to Mass with me. We need to expand our ability to share our talents, which quite frankly can be difficult because we have to be pulled out of our laziness, pulled out of our isolation. We have to choose not to what we want to do, but perhaps what the community needs from us. To be able to set up or to take down, to be able to serve or to be able to volunteer in all these different ways. You have talents specific to you. You are called to share whatever talents you have as a gift given to the community of the people of God. And we certainly have to expand our ability to give of our treasure. Treasure is an incredible anxiety. We're in a day and age right now where expenses are difficult, and we recognize that. But guys, it's hard for me not to come back from visiting 26 Kansas churches and seeing farming communities of the late 1800s build massive structures at an extreme cost to themselves whenever they were literally living in mud huts. They chose a stone church over a stone house. And they did so because they put worship at the center of their life and community at the center of their sacrifice. They gave of their time, talent, and treasure to be able to get those things done. We cannot rest on the heels of the gift of prior generations without taking up the torch ourselves. Who we are, what we have, has been given to us by people who have gone before us. I didn't put these stones up. I didn't build that school. I didn't lay this parking lot, but I am a steward of what I've received. We cannot be entitled to this. We have to own this in such a way that we expand our tolerance to suffer to make this work. That means more time this year, more talent this year, and more treasure this year. Not because I'm begging for you as if I'm some kind of charlatan wanting what you have. No. Because humanity has to grow in tolerance of suffering to become a full human. You want to lose weight? Suffer. You want to run a marathon? Suffer. You want to have good savings so that when you retire, you can retire the way you want to? Suffer. You want to have a good parish?